Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Qualified Allocation Plan Public Input Session. It's so great to see how many of you are online and how many of you are here in person. Very nice. We appreciate you. My name is Terry Nash-Giovanucci. I'll be facilitating this meeting. The purpose of this input session is to gather views and comments specifically related to the current QAP. And you may have seen it online and had a chance to review it, the 2026 Qualified Allocation Plan. This public input is the first step in the process of developing the QAP for 2027 and 2028. Participants will be called on in the order that I see hands raised. That might be a little challenging, so bear with me. I'm going to try to make sure we see everybody, and I have Dawn helping me as well with that. If you're on Zoom, please make sure your full name appears and not just your phone number. That will help. When you're called on, please state your full name and your affiliation and provide your comments. This is an opportunity for CHFA to hear your views related to the QAP. It's intentionally not an interactive session because we want to be able to hear from everyone. All voices are important. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We do have a lot of folks here, and I want to make sure everyone has a chance to speak. CHFA has received many comments via the public comment at chfa.org email box. I want to make sure that you know, and we are acknowledging those, they're recognized and will be considered. If you have not already done so but wish to submit a written comment, we have extended the deadline to April 15th. There's a lot of interest and we want to make sure we hear all voices. Again, that's public comment, no S, at chfa.org. There will be another opportunity in addition to this one to provide comments later in the spring. This input session is being recorded, as you heard, and a transcript will be posted on CHFA's website. If you object to being recorded, you may disconnect or excuse yourselves. Thank you all for joining us today. We welcome your comments. Now I'd open up to whoever would like to speak first. Yes, ma'am.
I'm happy to. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to meet you in person, and hi to the folks online. My name is Margaret Middleton. I serve as the legal director at Open Communities Alliance. Open Communities Alliance is a civil rights organization that seeks to create access to opportunity for everyone in Connecticut with a particular focus on redressing generations of segregationist government housing policies. Open Communities Alliance is grateful for this opportunity to testify on CHFA's low-income housing tax credit program and its qualified allocation plan for 2027. State law requires, I'm going to talk a little bit about what CHFA's obligations are under the federal and state civil rights laws. I'm going to say a little bit about past QAPs, and then I'm going to talk about a proposal for this year. So you have my outline. State law requires that CHFA affirmatively promote fair housing choice and racial and economic integration in all programs administered or supervised. That's the language of Connecticut General Statutes 837 CC Part B. In addition, CHFA is bound to comply with the Federal Fair Housing Act, including its requirement not to discriminate intentionally or through impact, and the duty to affirmatively further fair housing, which means that state policy must do more than refrain from discrimination. It must also foster integration. Nationally, the LIHTC program has developed housing that largely reinforces segregated housing patterns, and this pattern has held true in Connecticut, where since the inception of the program, 75% of the tax credit units have been located in the 74% of the state assessed as low or very low opportunity in the opportunity map adopted by CHFA. In 2022 and 2023 QAP, CHFA's board tacitly acknowledged that past allocations have concentrated LIHTC allocations in the poorest communities of color and worked to create a policy that would give low-income Connecticut's broader housing choices. By adopting what were called opportunity points in its QAP, Connecticut was part of a national movement towards ending the concentration of LIHTC subsidized units in only the highest poverty areas. As previously mentioned, 29 states, including those as politically diverse as Mississippi, Missouri, Massachusetts, Texas, California, and New York, currently allocate LIHTC units based on opportunity points. Peer-reviewed research has found that these policies achieve the intended effect of reducing the segregation of LIHTC households. 4 years after adopting opportunity points, CHFA's policy markedly increased diversification in the allocation of LIHTC units. CHFA and the Department of Housing should be incredibly proud of the demonstrated success of the methodology they created to promote integration through LIHTC allocations. In 2024, 86% of the LIHTC supported units were allocated for high and very high opportunity areas, while 14% were placed in low opportunity census tracts. The 2024 allocations were a victory for families who want the opportunity to offer their children higher performing public schools, less exposure to crime, and other positive neighborhood indicators. However, it would take decades of allocations like this to make up for the generations of LIHTC subsidized units built in the most impoverished census tracts in our state, especially if a portion of the credits were committed to rehabilitation and other projects in those areas, as they should be. The 2027-2028 QAP presents CHFA with the opportunity to reinvest in the success it had using LIHTC allocations to affirmatively further fair housing. I am going to share this proposal. I realize I'm getting clear in my 3 minutes.
Perfect, thank you.
OCA proposes that for this next upcoming QAP, CHFA build on its success with an improved approach designed to correct for the historical over-allocation of LIHTC units to developments in high poverty neighborhoods, while continuing a commitment to support housing in disinvested communities by undertaking the following changes. Number one, readopt resource equity mapping criteria, which is a comprehensive way to assess community resources by census tract. And number two, use these criteria to direct 60% of tax credit supported units to high and very high resourced areas and 40% to the remainder of the state as a means of counteracting the program's history. This mapping, which will be hosted by Data Haven starting on May 1st, 2026, uses an index of data points which CHFA staff originally had input into to assess whether resources and neighborhood amenities are available on an equal basis. If CHFA would prefer to explore other mapping options, OCA is happy to provide recommendations. If using these 60-40 buckets is not an option, at a minimum, OCA recommends restoring the original 9 points for higher resource locations, along with the 6 full points for a location in a municipality subject to 830G. In addition to these changes, OCA also recommends the following additional changes to the QAP. Number one, adding housing growth plans as part of a concentrated community revitalization plan. And number two, include a meaningful points mechanism to incentivize housing available to families with children. We will submit a more fulsome version of this that would take more than 3 minutes to read via email.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you guys very much. Listen.
Anyone else? Yes. Okay.
Okay, hi, my name is Federico Solis. I live at Sunset Ridge Apartments. And I'm here because I've lived in Sunset Ridge for almost 30 years. And I just appreciate being here. Okay, and Capital 4 years ago, Capital Realty took over Sunset Ridge. And it's been getting very bad, very bad with the way of living. In my apartment, I live building 14, apartment 145 at Sunset Ridge, and I have every day, like for 1 year, I've had mouse problems, and I've gotten 30 mouses altogether. Yeah, and I spend a lot of money on glue traps, trying to, because the people, the maintenance people at Sunset Ridge, they don't care. They'll make fun of you. They're like bullies, They'll make fun of you. They'll joke about it, what your problem is, and they just don't want to do the right thing. And I got flies in my apartment. And one year, right, the ceiling collapsed on me. The lady upstairs had a dog in the apartment, and she left the air conditioner on 24/7. And one weekend she went to Boston, Massachusetts, and she left the air conditioner on, and the water was dripping until the ceiling collapsed, and the ceiling collapsed, and luckily I wasn't there. I would have been dead. And I told Capital Realty about this. Can you fix the roof, please? Can you please? After 4 years, they finally fixed it, but they didn't fix it at all. They were, like putting the scraps and trying to fix it, but they didn't fix it at all until after 4 years they finally fixed it.
Federico, sounds like it's a
Yeah.
matter concerning your apartment, and we have asset management staff here who can help you with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it's related to developing the qualified allocation plan, which is what the hearing is for. But absolutely sympathetic and want to be able to help you. Would you like to meet with one of the asset managers?
So,
Would that be good?
yes, Terry, one of the reasons why, first of all, my name is Tawana Galbraith, and I am a leader of the Sunset Ridge Tennis Union, and also affiliated with Connecticut Tennis Union. I have been actively engaging with Connecticut Tennis Union since last year, October. One of the reasons why I suggest that Federico come here, not so much because it's not just his issue. Once we realize that there's a way that this landlord, our landlord, is continuously being funded in order to not do what's necessary and stated. So you guys, we appreciate you for what you do. You allow people who can't afford to pay private rent to have apartments. He is the person that qualifies for that. He qualifies on his voucher in order to have his needs met. So if they keep being funded to not do what they're supposed to do under tenant law, that's his issue. Not so much as the road is in just his apartment, it's overall.
It's
So
the
these things that
property.
we came
Yeah.
to collect this 312 unit property. So collectively, we've heard the concerns from the different tenants as we begin to organize. But if they keep being funded and they keep finding a way, if we come together and organize individually, they force us out. They hit us with fake evictions, they move us. And then if you get evicted or you get moved out, how do we go to the next affordable housing place when we know in this city there is a lack of affordable housing across the state? So
Right.
if they're being funded and they can continue to utilize your system and other systems to bully us out, that's the real issue. And there was no action in his apartment until he became affiliated with the union. And basically, if they're gonna pacify us by sending us to one agency to another agency, LCI isn't working for us. And it's basically, they spend the money that they get from you guys to show up and block us from organizing. We have a right to organize, we have a right to be heard collectively, not individually. So we try to let the people know, but another thing is we don't even know that these hearings go on. If it wasn't for a CTT coming into with us, we would not even know that this took place. So how do we go on record collectively?
Can I
So-
introduce you
If
to?
can I interrupt, please? I'm Pat Giuliano. I'm the managing director of multifamily at CHFA. What I'd like to suggest we do, and I will meet with you. I would suggest that this just isn't the right meeting for this. What we need to do is have a sit down. I'll have the asset manager there. I'll have our director of asset management, and I'll participate as well. Let's get you guys to come back in and sit with me and the team, and we can we'll address your questions in a better forum. We only have an hour to do this. This is about a document that dictates how we allocate our tax credits and how we award tax credits. So it's just, I don't think this is the right forum for this discussion, but I'm certainly happy to give you that opportunity.
Peter, if you could,
Yes, sir.
Just briefly chiming in about why, leaders from the Sunset Ridge complex in particular felt compelled to come to this public hearing in particular. We are grateful for and look forward to taking you up on that offer at your earliest convenience. But this is a LIHTC funded property, and with respect to the QAP, while there are mechanisms for incentives for, accountability, resident oversight and participation in ensuring that the property actually functions with the quality that it needs to function with, there are not non-incentivizing enforcement mechanisms. We got the carrot, we need the stick, clearly, based on the reality that this major LIHTC property in New Haven is
And overall, that's what we were looking for. We were looking for what you're promising, but
Yes.
overall, not just promise to Sunset Ridge, to us in general, who are looking for a seat at the table. If
Yes.
you receive money from our different agencies, be it HUD, be it Section 8, be it Liberty, Shelter Plus Care, whichever agency it is, if we don't know who's funding the bully, how do we stop it? That's all we're looking for.
Okay, and again, I'm happy to have that conversation with you, and to the gentleman's comments. If you have specific recommendations that you want to make in terms of how we proceed with LIHTC deals through our QAP going forward, happy to consider those. My suggestion would be that you put them in writing, and Terry had mentioned that, and we'll provide it to you. Terry had mentioned the email address that you can submit comments to. I would suggest you submit those comments to that. But I believe is Adam in the room? Adam, if you're in the room, maybe you can take some information and we can get a meeting set up.
You all want to come with me? We're just gonna go to a different conference room if you don't mind, so that we can talk. Okay, so we're not interrupting this meeting.
Yeah.
Right?
And again, my name is Pat Giuliano. I'm the managing director of multifamily, and I'll be present when we meet. And you could bring whoever you want, and you could say whatever you want, and we can start a conversation about how we proceed.
Yeah, so after this meeting, I don't know your name, sir.
It's Dave Richardson.
Dave just asked that they could do it after this meeting, so I'm happy to stick for this meeting,
Yes.
then we can go into another conference room or stay here just with us. But then we'd like to make sure that all the comments are regarded to the QAP that we're here right now. And we'll talk about it, I'll get all the information, and then I'll get them together with Pat, and we'll go ahead and set up something.
Just one more question regarding this meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Where is it that you guys who do this, where is it that you make this public, that we know what's going on? Because me, as a layperson, I'm just a tenant, just a taxpayer, paying money to a landlord. How do we know when things like this go on so that we can inform you guys?
Well,
Because if
this-
it wasn't for these people, we wouldn't know.
This
Yeah.
particular meeting is just an input session. It's more informal. And so usually it's the developers who are attending and commenting and the like on the formation of the new QAP. But so it's important to have everyone's voice. We publish it on our website. We send out e-blasts. So if you're not on our list, please sign on and you can get whatever news is coming from CHFA. Also, we have another one that's more formal, public hearing that takes place in the later spring. That one gets noticed in all the newspapers. It's pushed on our website. It goes out again through the e-blast. So keep an eye out for that one too. So you can always check on our website. It's under events. You can look at events and see what's happening there. Sign up for alerts and you can get noticed that way. Check the legal notices in the paper from time to time. I know it's kind of old fashioned, but it's online as well. So if you look online at say New Haven Register or Hartford Current, you'd find it under legal notices. But that's how we notify everyone. And then we provide both the Zoom and the in-person options to make sure everyone's able to come and participate.
Everybody good?
We appreciate you.
We'll have a conversation, I promise you.
So we're going to another meeting?
Oh, yeah, you can hang here.
Oh,
And
We're
then
gonna wait till after.
Yeah, we'll wait till after, if everybody wants to
And
stay.
we're gonna go after.
okay.
We just wanna hear what's going on. This is how you get informed.
exactly. Leanne? Thanks, Jill.
Hey, everybody. I was going to offer my comments if this is an appropriate time to do so. Leanne Hanfield Curtin with Beacon Communities. CHFA, thank you for this opportunity to comment on the next version of the QAP. We appreciate the opportunity. And I just have two comments that I'll offer on behalf of Beacon. First, on the 90% plan requirement, we'd like to see that be removed as a threshold item. While we recognize the importance of readiness and predictability around costs when entering a competitive round, we also see this requirement as having unintended consequences. Given the time it takes from application to award to closing, in the best case, 9 to 12 months start to finish, predictability really can't be guaranteed right now in such a volatile market. And instead, it actually can only add time and money if comments are received then during planning cost review after funding announcements are made, because the plans have been advanced so far. So we're actually unwinding work that we've already done, and then we're paying engineers and such to redo what they've already done. The current draft also doesn't, or the current QAP also doesn't distinguish between 9 and 4. It appears to be a threshold requirement for both, and so we would like to see that addressed as well. And then our second comment is on the supportive housing category. Without available operating subsidy and service dollars to secure for those units, we would also like to see the points for that category to be reconsidered. It's a pretty heavily weighted category, and absent operating subsidy and service dollars, the units actually strain the operating budget, significantly reducing supportable debt and having a negative impact on the future operations for the property. So thank you again for this opportunity to comment, and I will let someone else take a turn.
Thank you, Leanne. Melissa. Melissa Cops, I saw you a second ago with your hand up.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I had the wrong microphone. My comments, I'm Melissa Cops. I am a board member at Bill Green CT. And my comments are about the sustainability points, which were reduced and changed in the last version of the QAP after there was a quite robust stakeholder process that happened between around 2021, I want to say 21, 22, that developed a framework of sustainability that was very diverse and flexible for developers to meet sustainability goals. We think that energy efficiency should be prioritized because people living in these units should have the highest level of comfort, the lowest energy bills, and the former version of the QAP actually incentivized a lot of innovation. Connecticut has been out front with really great energy efficiency in these projects that have made national news. And now Connecticut is also, investing in our state properties in the same way, but the CHFA was kind of the first to value energy efficiency in a way that was really thorough and comprehensive, and benefited the residents and the owners of the units by providing resiliency, health improvement, lower energy bills, and stability. That now you see the state committing to that in other ways in terms of zero energy schools that have been put online in the last few years. And as the state is committing to these high energy efficiency goals, it seems like a bad idea for CHFA to then backslide on these goals. And in order to be in line with the state's goals, we recommend that CHFA reinstate the framework for sustainability that was developed by a group of various stakeholders over a number of hours of volunteer time. And if it needs to be looked at again, I would recommend that a comparable set of stakeholders be involved in redefining it if there are new concerns about the original framework that was developed. So those are my comments, and thank you for the opportunity to give them. And thank you for your leadership in providing, great priority for energy efficiency in these taxpayer funded units. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. There's lots of folks on the line. Don't be shy.
Hi, I can jump in if nobody else.
Sarah.
Hi, I will echo what Melissa says. My name is Sarah Holmes. I'm an architect and I'm the chair of Build Green CT, which Melissa said she was a board member of. We are a nonprofit organization focused on accelerating the just and sustainable transformation of the built environment through education, advocacy, and community building. I was also disappointed to see the sustainable design measures points decreased from the prior version to the current one from 13 to 9. That sustainable design measures section shows your vision and leadership by creating a QAP that facilitates both the state and agency's ability to meet its climate and housing goals for Connecticut's most vulnerable residents. Motivating developers to incorporate sustainable design measures can encourage high quality buildings for the population sector who would most benefit from affordable utilities and healthy buildings, and help ensure that Connecticut's affordable housing stock is resilient to climate impacts. When updating the QAP, please restore not only the sustainable points, but also restore the prerequisites for DOE, zero energy ready, balanced ventilation, and benchmarking, because we can't afford to backslide now. Thank you.
Hey, Kathy.
Hello. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I want to add on the leadership that CHFA has taken in the long run, and sustainability is really important. I think the 2026 QAP focused on people with the greatest needs, including our unhoused neighbors, and it's important to serve that need. However, I don't think it should address all of the QAP, so that there should be perhaps a set aside for that, a category. I think, as the Open Housing Alliance has commented, it's important for many of the units, maybe 60%, as they've said, to be available to increase fair housing and housing in areas of opportunity. I agree that the definitions of areas of opportunity needs to be updated. And of course, I agree and believe that we need to make sure that we're building and maintaining very, very high quality housing. That's important, that we do not segregate or differentiate our housing from the market. And given current climate conditions, rather than reducing as happened in the last year, we should be increasing from the baseline of the prior years, starting to think about embodied carbon as well as operating carbon as part of the QAP. I've sent also a letter and appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone else who has a thought about the development of the new QAP? Yes, Steve.
Hi, thanks. I'm Steve Clucky with Stephen Winter Associates. We are consultants that support the design and construction teams in the development. of affordable housing in Connecticut. It's the lion's share of our work in Connecticut, though we do that work up and down the East Coast, from Maine to Virginia. Thank you to the CHFA staff for your continued commitment to affordable housing in Connecticut. Thanks for being open to listening to comments. I shared some via email, but I wanted to, if I could, take a minute to reiterate some of them on this call. Obviously, I'm going to echo what Ms. Cobbs and Ms. Holmes said about sustainability. There seems to have been some sort of injection of opinion that it's in line with the current things used to be better back in the day, and we don't necessarily need to care about resiliency, affordability, health, efficiency, etc. That somehow found its way into last year's edits. So I wouldn't mind a little more transparency in how that exactly happens. And if there were, for example, people on the committee or whatever it is that you guys listen to as these things are being developed, I'd question the intent, I guess, and the goal of those participants. I would certainly agree from a non-sustainability perspective that 90% CDs is asking too much of developers. It's expensive. It takes time. We're finding, not just in Connecticut, but in all our work, I mean, we certify thousands of units, lots of them affordable, up and down the East Coast. And we're finding that developers don't have the pre-construction budgets that they used to have. And what that ends up doing means that they are not able to maybe pay as much or on time. We're taking deferred payments. It puts a lot of stress on them, obviously, and puts a lot of stress on us too. We're just trying to support the scopes that we've been asked to support. Digital literacy and connectivity has never been, as far as I'm concerned, sustainable design measure and should not be in the sustainability section. That point should be given back to sustainability, especially since we've lost half of our points in the last revision. I'm not entirely sure why. But yeah, it's so common that it's really not even worth giving a point for anymore, as far as I'm concerned. Although I'm in Fairfield County, so we don't have a problem with that here, but maybe other areas of Connecticut do. I think also the energy conservation and green building language in Exhibit A1 should be strengthened. Requiring compliance to the extent appropriate and practical for the property is just not enforceable. Any number of excuses can be invented to justify pursuing a less rigorous path. I think the standards that are included are perfectly reasonable. I don't think there really should be any projects that wouldn't be able to participate if they were required to meet those standards. And if there was a project that was worthy yet, for whatever reason, couldn't make it, I'm sure there's a waiver process that could be used on a case-by-case basis. And that is about it from me. I won't reiterate what others have said. Thank you again to the CHFA staff for your continued support for affordable housing. And just in ending, I'll say the most important people in this conversation are those who are going to be living in these buildings. Their health and resiliency and well-being should be paramount above all. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Lisa?
Hi, thank you so much for having this meeting. My name is Lisa Endo. I represent the Norwalk Housing Authority and our instrumentality Sound Communities. I wanted to just raise to your attention that when it comes to the points around cost effectiveness, which we can all certainly agree is an important thing to incentivize, housing authorities, excuse me, housing authorities are typically subject to additional requirements. Like, for example, we comply with Davis-Bacon and prevailing wage. And if those wages increase, even while the project is under construction, we need to go ahead and respect that. And it can, eat into our project budget and contingency. Not all developers or projects are subject to that change after closing, is my understanding. Also, we often are awarded home funds or other federal dollars which can bring along requirements around like BABA and other things. So it's just something that I wanted to point out, and we were going to probably submit a more detailed memo around it. But it would be great if you could, acknowledge that housing authorities are often subject to requirements that tend to add costs to our projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. John?
Hello, all. I just wanted to hop in and echo some of the sustainability comments and just say that, I really appreciate what you all do and the leadership role that CHFA was in, and am concerned that there's been a retrenchment from that. From my perspective, the intent was likely to reduce costs per unit, which I think is a valid concern because we do need a lot of units, as well as high quality units. So I do want to acknowledge that there is a balance there, but also say that from my perspective, I work for McGrath Associates. I forgot to mention that we do similar work to the work that Steve described, Stephen Winter, that we really don't have time to take a step back. The specific issue that I wanted to address, which seemed like I couldn't sort of invent and understand or a reason for it, are the distinction between new construction and preservation requirements when the preservation units are in fact a new construction project. That seems like a loophole to me. Feels like even if the units are, being built to replace units that are coming offline, and are preserving existing affordable housing units, that it would make sense just from a technical perspective to have them adhere to the same requirements as a new construction project would, even if they're getting funds from a different source or allocation of tax credits. And then just to say that I think, reestablishing a baseline of Energy Star, we think Zero Energy Ready would be, or efficient, now known as Efficient New Homes, would be a great push. But if CHFA feels like they need to continue to balance the cost versus efficiency, the bar should not go lower than Energy Star. That is a baseline set by all surrounding states. We haven't worked on a tax credit funded new construction project that hasn't earned the Energy Star label as determined by EPA. They decide what's appropriate based on the code, right? And that 10% better than code seems like a very reasonable ask, and maybe reintroducing Zero Energy Ready as a way to get some points, as a mid step towards Passive House, which we would support remaining in the optional credit category for points. We also submitted some written comments, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak up. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Caitlin.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Caitlin Snyder, and I'm the Managing Director of the National Housing and Rehabilitation Association. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment. I just wanted to echo Steve and Leanne's comments around the plans and specifications. Specifically in the QAP, Section 3A9 requires that plans are at 90% completion as a threshold requirement for both 9 and 4% awards. This requirement really stands out as a high burden with significant costs and is an outlier within the HFA community. I'd like to see this removed as a threshold item and consultation with some of your HFA peers to see kind of what is more in line with the industry standard. And then outside of the QAP, but as it relates to the process, the CONAP and the multifamily rental housing program guideline require a pro forma based on stabilized year in year 3. The rest of the industry uses year 1. And so this requires creating an entirely separate pro forma for CHFA. And we'd like to see the agency work towards using the standard that's used by the rest of the industry. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and we will be submitting some written comments.
Great, thank you, Caitlin.
just like to mention how much I appreciate the Quaker meeting style of this. Just want to hold the headlight.
Anybody else, anything further? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Susan Brown and I'm here as a, just a citizen. And, I'm here to discuss or project the lack of housing for the elderly, 55 to 62. Particularly such places such as the town housing authority developments where, it's based on 30 or 40% or 50% of your income. Based on everything that's being built, the state, and I applaud them, has been spent millions on developing properties. A lot of them have been in the inner cities. A lot of them are luxury apartments because they're by private developers, which we can't do anything about. And I know the state has a set aside of 10% that must be considered, quote, affordable. Well, the affordable is not affordable. Even average cost of affordable is $1,600 a month plus utilities. How is that affordable for an elderly person on a fixed income? And I've seen, no, I believe, and I say this with the utmost respect, there's been a huge failure by the state and by CHFA to build housing for such as under housing authorities. And everywhere I've spoken to a lot of people in the state, different agencies, and unfortunately, all you hear is the same story. We understand there's a crisis. You cannot get into any housing. There's the lists are closed. Waiting lists are 3, 4, 6 years. I waited 5.5 years to get on one, to be called. That's unacceptable. The elderly has been a forgotten population. And everything is built on providing for the middle class, very low income, but nothing on fixed income, where people such, even if myself, if I chose, want to live in a safe housing with reasonable rents and not have to worry about crime. And particularly, I feel that the suburban towns have particularly been lost. And I understand that the suburban towns are going to probably be last on the list. However, there's no agency, there's nothing being done to provide anything like that. And I did find out that unfortunately, it depends on the housing authorities, that it's based on the committee to go out and look and develop or want to develop and reach the different agencies. But some of the towns that I have talked to that are part of the housing authorities have no idea they're supposed to do that. So where is the communication? And I guess my biggest complaint is, where is the housing for the elderly? And there's been no resources dedicated to that. And so I guess I'm looking for some answers.
Thank you, Susan. So we've made note of your comments, are important. I've spoken with you before.
Yes.
Yes. And we will be taking them into consideration as we develop the new QAP. I think all of us know the housing is an issue everywhere.
Mhm.
And then in the last QAP and in this QAP, we're trying to address many competing needs. Charles?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charles Finkley, and I am one of the senior vice presidents here at Elm City Communities, which serves as the housing authority for the city of New Haven, as well as the development arm, the Glendower Group. We tout ourselves as one of the largest nonprofit developers in the state of Connecticut. And so we really just want to thank the state for your leadership in updating the QAP for 2027. On our side, we really like the removal of the 90% drawings. That alone potentially saves some of our projects hundreds of thousands of dollars on the front end and pre-development costs. And so for us, we are actively trying to reduce the overall cost of construction on our projects. And I think that that move alone helps us in that quest. It also helps overall with the state and making more affordable housing more attainable for some of the smaller developers as well, by not having that large cost burden on the front end. And so again, as we go through the rest of the changes, even with sustainability, there has to be a balance in where we can still incorporate green initiatives while we balance costs as well. But right now, we just wanted to thank you guys on your leadership and anything we can do to assist in that process. We do stand ready to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with comments? We had originally indicated we would accept written comments through end of business today, but we will extend that to another couple of weeks. We want to make sure that we have everyone's comments, and if you think of things afterwards, it's often when it happens, you're very free to write in. That's another 2 weeks, and then we have again the public hearing in typically end of May, June, around then. So, but watch for that announcement too.
My name is Dave Richardson, with the Connecticut Tenants Union. I know we're here to address policies and policy changes. Where can I get a copy of all this information?
Oh, it's on.
Because apparently, I'm not gonna say I'm lost, but what I gathered from the conversation that's being had here today is sustainability is one, and the cost is the other. And I would say developers and architects should know that a project that we see starting today, I would say 50 units and higher, is already in the planning phase about a year and a half ago. And if the material is being purchased correctly and the budget is being properly allocated with the inflation rate attached to it, there should be no major issue as far as making any building sustainable. A building that's LEED certified does not require much more than a building that's not. I worked in construction all my life, so I know these different things from a different perspective. And here, what's going on here in the testimony that I heard today, it is not really addressing the issue, whereas we're dealing with a homelessness situation and the developers are trying to make top profit. Just like Sunset Ridge was explaining, I'm looking at the issues that need to be addressed is how us as stakeholders, how our money is being spent in having developers develop and maximizing on the profit. I don't remember her name over this lady that's referred to elderly people. I'm disabled and I cannot qualify based on a fixed income to get into none of these new developments that have a gap or 10%, 5%, 15, 20% that's allocated for people of low income. Low income is not $1,600 a month and is not $600 a month, but never that high to begin with. If you're thinking about paying even 30% of your average income, most people that's on disability, 50% of the income is less than $1,000. So this board and this committee need to address the issue of preventing homelessness because it's being criminalized in the legal system. When something is being legalized and criminalized, and the system that's supposed to protect and provide for these people, individuals, and community are not doing the job, we have a fundamental problem that needs to be addressed. And I think that's something we need to deal with. And also I need a copy of the information so I can properly address what's going on.
Thank you, Dave. We'll make that, I'll give you the email address, but I also have a hard copy I could give you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Gary, if I can jump in, I just want to clarify something because I'm seeing some comments in the chat. The deadline for the submission of written comments is going to be April 15th. End of day, April 15th for this first round of comments. So I hope that clarifies some of the questions that were being asked.
When we say end of day, are we referring to 5 p.m. or are we
5
saying?
p.m. Yes.
Thank you. Good question. You never know.
So this meeting was about affordability, not about what the have problems in the apartments and stuff like that. What I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
We're gonna discuss that next.
You know, that's a good topic, but not for this meeting. This meeting was about the.
Nobody told me.
Okay, that's all right. That was perfectly fine, you, right? Yeah,
We're gonna, after we'll meet,
yeah.
we'll probably go into the conference room over
Yes,
there.
we take care of that later.
Yeah.
We'll
Don't
take
worry
care of
about
that.
it.
You do have someone online. Do you want to stay in this room?
She she was at work, so she was trying to do her comment a lot
Oh.
earlier, but when we realized, so she's gonna give me her story and we'll share that.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Also, just off of what they were saying in Susan, well, again, my name is Tawana Galbraith, and I've been for years working with this fair market rent stuff. And it's across the board, so I have documentation from housing there. Where she's talking about for this year came out that for fair market rent for a 1 bedroom is with no utilities included is $1,590. For the one light, they put the gas, but not the lights, is $1,650. And that's across the state. And then if they include lights and gas, it's $1,695. But then I know that even with the increase of federal government funding, Social Security, disability, or AIDS, so somebody might only be receiving $1,000 a month. Then with places like what we live in, they adamantly advocate to us to say that they are fair market and low market rent. And then they get us in there at this cap. And then as soon as you get in there, they turn around and do a $300 or $400 rent increase on you. And this is across the state. This is across the board. And if your agency is not willing to pay that, where does the money come from? If you can't get a job because there's no job or you're not able to work, and then even you only work 20 hours under your Social Security, or you're too old to even work that, or you have a disability where you can't even do that, does it come from? Then if we keep going to these same places, it's like you're penalized for being disabled, you're penalized for being senior, you're penalized. So only thing we're asking for, not necessarily talking about the housing issues, because that's for housing court. And we're there with them at housing court. But we need to make sure that these practices are brought to your attention. If you keep financing the bully, how do we win? Everyone that I know that I've knocked on, everyone does not have access to a computer. A lot of them places can't even afford to pay internet bills. The agencies that used to give us that free stuff is now being taken away because of these overall budget cuts. That's nationwide. It's not just you guys. So I thank you guys very much for what you do. But if no one brings it and there's no public forum for these kind of conversations that only have to do with money and how the money is allocated statewide. And these same agencies that give this money talks about it's how it goes, and it does differentiate when you go to West Haven, Fear, it goes up even more for what a landlord can ask. And if the landlord is getting the kickback because they are part of your thing, when we go on here to Zillow or Trulia or apartmentfinders.com and we look up Sunset Ridge, the first thing that comes in their name after their name is your name. That's the God's honest truth, and that's public knowledge. So if you get baited into an apartment, and then as soon as you sign your lease, in the middle of the lease, they have a right because they can, because there's no caps on this. Now we're fighting in legislation to get that blocked, but how do we help if not pointing the finger at your agency, but if your agency keeps funding them to fight us? We don't have the money to keep going to court. We're trying to make it so that we can defund the bully. That's the only reason why we're here today. And when we go to this man, and I know that he appears to be an honest man, he appears to want to hear us out. But when we put our stuff in documentation. Like this woman here, that's online, she has to work 2 jobs. She's my neighbor, but she has to work 2 jobs to meet this. When she came in there as a single mom with her partner, they have to work 4 jobs basically just to maintain it. They went up next year, $200, next year, $200, next year, $200. And then when we come and we try to help her organize, they threaten her. With get out. Where do you go? And if you get one, and we know this, if you get one mark on you and you go to a new landlord and say, I got evicted, who are you gonna believe? You or the bully? And that's what we're here to address today. We need help to stop funding the bully. Eventually, these people will get so upset, and I've seen them start with me in October, get an eviction notice, be afraid to move out by December. But we just then they utilize fair rent commission to hold us back. But these agencies are funded by you guys. So when we try to get them to just keep these people in the apartment until we can address it, they pushed us through to December, February, then held back the mail. We supposed to got this mail in February. We didn't get it till Monday. That told them the answer to stay or leave. So if you get hit with an eviction, or you're gonna move out. This lady moved out with a brand new baby in the snow. Oh. But that's what they're doing. They're getting money to remove snow on private property, but they won't move it. Snow is in and keep the mail. And I got that in documentation, but how do I send it to the board as just a plain person and not without the backing of these unions? Because I didn't know what to do.
Tawana, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I really very much appreciate it.
And I will be looking, I promise you, I'm gonna look for answer. I thank you for receiving it, but I'm looking for answers.
Yes. It is now at the end of the public comment period. I want to just make sure everyone is aware it's public comment altogether, no S, public comment at chfa.org. Please do submit anything that comes to mind after this meeting or as you gather your thoughts.
Yes.
Dave, thank you very much for your comments too. This is the document here. For everyone else's benefit, the QAP is online on our homepage. So if you go to chfa.org, just scroll down a little bit, you'll see the 2026 qualified allocation plan. And that is everything that we're working off of now as we develop the new one. Thank you so much for attending, everyone. Very much appreciate your input, your thoughts, and your opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Terry.